Yes. Okay, welcome to Faith and Count. This is class number 196. It is 2 weeks to Purim, or well, that's the day. I would like to talk about Purim. I could talk about Purim, but I didn't prepare for Purim, so I'm still behind. So instead, I thought here's another idea.
Yes, Hashem, what's the name of your class? Then I'm going to say the name of my section.
Oh, good. Thanks for reminding me to always mention at the beginning of the class. So class 196. This class is,
The Jewish take on loneliness.
the Jewish take on loneliness. I heard a little voice say that. Okay. The Jewish take on loneliness.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a class not only for lonely people. And then my section is going to be how in the world could the Lubavitcher Rebbe say that the grave will have no power over him? Isn't he? He's a person of flesh and blood. How can a person of flesh and blood possibly say that the grave will have no power over him? And it's going to have. And I have two blockbuster stories, two incredible stories.
Oh.
And Yecheskel Shimon is talking about the Jewish take on loneliness.
Yeah,
yes.
It's different than the. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You find out you're not really lonely.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Speak for yourself.
I
I
hear
hello.
you. I hear you. Well, listen to the class. I think you may view it a little differently.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So let's put it this way.
Okay.
So, you know that last week in shul, we read one of the four special parshas. There are four biblically required parshas that you have to attend. Zachor will be required for everybody, men and women. This one, every man has to be there in shul, and it's called Parsha Shkolim. Shkolim.
This week is Parsha Shkolim?
Last week, Friday, last Shabbos.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Sorry, I knew that.
Okay. Yeah. And Shkolim means shekel. What does it mean? Because in the time of the temple, the Jews we'd have to give half a shekel. This half a shekel was the first time when Moses told them to give it, was an atonement for the golden calf. And then each year they were supposed to give this as accounting as a census, half a shekel. And those shekels were kept. They're collected on Adar. And the mute. I think we're getting some feedback. So, so yeah, they would give half a shekel, and so this would be used in the temple on Nisan. They would start buying the new sacrifices, the new karbanos, the lambs, and so forth for the coming year. So Adar, 1 month beforehand, they would start collecting the shekels, and it was one half shekel for everybody. Now, of course, the first question is why a half? Why a half? And it's only one half. You couldn't give more, you couldn't give less. So whoever heard of a Jewish fundraiser where they said, no, I don't care. You want to give $1 million? Half $1. That's it. No more. That's it. In silver, that would be about $8 and so forth. No more. You can only give 8. You can't give more. You can't give less. That's what it is. And a half. Everything in the temple had to be whole. Everything had to be complete. And this is a half. And then the third question here is, it says right after it says everybody has to give half a shekel. It says, and by the way, what is a shekel? A shekel is esrim gera, 20 coins, which is called the gera. And that's what a shekel is. But that's what a shekel is. That's not what a half a shekel is. You wanted to tell me what I just told you, I'm giving half a shekel. So what they should be saying is half a shekel is 10 gera. I know you can do the math, but the Rebbe asked the question, and the Rebbe asked this question in the Sikha that he said in Tavshin Nun Beis, which actually was 3 days before the stroke. So it was the last Sikha that the Rebbe ever said in public. And so people look at this, and he said many things in that Sikha, but he brought out one point, which I think is probably important and relevant and very interesting in our personal lives. And that's why I'm going to bring it up. And of course, the person who's listened to this, and I remember he was here in Boston at the time, was Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, and I was learning with him at the time. And he had to go down to Crown Heights every Shabbos, because he was one of the oral scribes, and he was memorizing these and then later writing it down. So he was away that week. But and then he came back, and then whatever. So this was the last sikha that the Rebbe said. And what did the Rebbe say? He asked these questions. What is this business? It's a half is a half. It's a half of, and that's all. And then why are you telling me what a whole is worth? And the answer is, and you're going to wonder about this one, is he says, well, that's because by giving a half, you really are giving a whole. And when you do give your half, you really are giving a whole. Now, at this point in time, if this was a cartoon, we'd see those little question marks in a person's head, like, what are you talking about when you give a half? It's really a whole. It's like, what's going on? I don't understand. What do you mean? Give me half, it is a whole. That's my addition, by the way.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't.
Keep going.
Didn't.
I know the answer. It's sort of like a half a neshama. Each person is a half a neshama, and then when they're married, then it creates one whole neshama. So it's the same idea.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay, we're done.
I'm sorry. That wasn't really the right answer, was it?
Well, let's fill it in, okay? All right.
Okay.
Let's fill it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, we didn't make any mistake. So the question is really a deep one, and it's a very meaningful personal question too. Am I complete in myself? Or do I have to have somebody else in my life? Am I okay by myself? Is a human being, everybody is basically, the situation is we're ultimately fundamentally lonely. Only person who's really going to understand me is me. There are parts of me, no one will ever understand, no matter how close I get and how nice they are. In a certain way, some people say, you know what? I'm always by myself. Rabbi Soloveitchik wrote a book called The Lonely Man of Faith. And he basically was saying, what it means to be a Jew is to be alone. It's alone. It's alone. That's the nature. God made the world, and that's what it is, and so forth. Or you're social butterfly, and everything is about everything connected. So which one of the two is it? Is it that do I need attachments? Do I need friends? Do I need husband? Do I need wife? Am I by myself? And that is a profound question. And people see that as a dichotomy. And what we're going to try and show is Torah attitude to this whole idea of what is loneliness and what is being alone. And Torah basically says is that there is an individual goof, but there's a big goof. We all are part of one huge ecosystem. There is no way that we are self-sufficient in ourselves. And when you think about it, where does me end? I have to eat, I have to breathe, I have to drink. So I need things from the outside in. So that's part of me, my needs, and part of me too, what's outside of me. If you want to understand it another way, look at it this way. Everything is in part of a big ecosystem. And Torah, and especially Kabbalah, views everything as you are both a giver and a receiver, but you're part of a relationship with a larger world. If the worms in the ground did not constantly dig and make more holes and aerate the air, we wouldn't have food, and they're part of the ecosystem. We wouldn't exist. The scientists for many years wondered, why is there this thing called lightning? They thought that that's not needed. It's extraneous. It's just a big noise. It's lightning and thunder. What do I need that for? What is it doing? And then they discovered it's actually an essential part of creation, because there's this thing in the atmosphere called nitrogen, there's a thing called oxygen, and they don't get along together. But if they don't come together in nitrites, you wouldn't have amino acids and you wouldn't have life in this world. So there's lightning almost every 30 seconds somewhere in the world in order to fix the oxygen together with the nitrogen. And even wind, you say, I don't like the wind. Yeah, but if there was no wind, the water would evaporate, go up into the air, go over the ocean, and then rain down in the same place again. So you have to have wind. So everything in this world is connected, interdependent with each other. It's one big ecosystem. And it's not just about the physical world, it's also about us too. We too all need to have some sort of a connection. We are not sufficient all in ourselves, all by ourselves. I know sometimes some people make a philosophy out of it and say, you know what? Because it hurts a lot. It hurts a lot not to be connected with someone else. And so we say, you know what? Maybe I'm just a person who can be by myself. Or even worse, you say, you know what? There's something bad about me, and I actually deserve to be alone. And that's really bad. That's really sad because, it's not true. You are needed, you are desired, and you are part of a system where everybody is connected and you're giving no matter what all the time. You are part of the rest of the world. And that's what we had. The Alter Rebbe explained, you should love your neighbor as yourself. And he asked the question, well, what does yourself have to do with somebody else? Just tell you that you should love somebody else. And he says, actually, it's a promise. You can't really love somebody else unless you love yourself. Unless you think you're fantastic and you have something to give, then you know what? You won't like the other person. And the other way is also, it's a promise. When you start liking yourself, other people will like you too. It's a guarantee. The more that you are able to realize that I have something to give, something important to give, something important to share, then people also connect with you. So you are part of an ecosystem. You are part of a connection, connected together. And none of us are all an island to ourselves, all by ourselves. We are all part of one big system, the big goof, the big body. I'll tell you a story. I like the story. It's a story from Russia. There was a rabbi called the Zvila Rebbe. I don't know the connection with the Zvila Rebbe in Boston. Maybe it's the same one. Maybe it's his father. Maybe it's an uncle. I don't know exactly. But he was in a gulag, in a camp for many years. And at one point in time, the warden called him in. And the warden told him, he says, you've been given reprieve and you're allowed to go home. You just have to sign this document and you're free. And the Zvila Rebbe said, I can't sign it because the day is Shabbos. And the warden says, you don't understand where you are. You're in the gulag, you're talking to the commandant, the warden, and if you don't sign, I can't promise you that you'll live the rest of, out the rest of your sentence. They'll ever give you this opportunity again. The Zvila Rebbe says, I can't sign it, Shabbos. There happened to be in the office another Jew at the same time who was also being released, and he was a secular communist, but he was Jewish. So he's listening to this dialogue, and the warden says to him, okay, you sign for you because I'm letting you out. And this Jew looks and he says, I can't sign. He just saw what happened and he says, I can't sign. I'm Jewish. The warden says, what are you talking about? You're not a rabbi. What are you talking? He says, no, it's just the Shabbos. I can't sign. In other words, got two of these people who can't sign. But the Zvila Rebbe looks at the communist and he says to him, listen, you're an old man and I'm young. I can survive this place. But I'm not sure you'll be able to survive. So you know what? It's a mitzvah, kuach nefesh, saving a Jew's life, pushes away even the Shabbos. So I'm going to sign for you. The warden hears this and he goes, I don't know what to do with you guys. And he says, listen, I'm signing for both of you. Get out of here. And that's what happened. Now you see that really what Judaism is saying is the following. We are all part of the same being. We're all part of the same creature. We're all connected to each other. And the fact that you can't get out of the prison, it also bothers me. And that's the uniqueness about how the Jews view each other and how the Jews view each other, half of each other. And it even comes in another way, which is in marriage. In marriage, the secular way of thinking of marriage is one person comes and another person comes, and maybe together we'll be able to make a life. And we're two separate people, though. We're separate and we're different. But you know what? We seem to do something together. Judaism says that's not quite true. We actually are, originally, we were created as one being, man and woman. And they were separated. And the rabbis, I think the Alter Rebbe asked the question. He says, why was it that way? Why were all the other creatures of the world were made man and woman, and only human beings were first made as a man woman, as a one androgynous creature, and then they had to be split into two. He says it's teaching you a very important, interesting lesson. And that is that when two people get together, it's not just two people deciding they were going to make a marriage. It's two halves, as Suri said, that are coming back together. It's a reunion. And that is why the Alter Rebbe says weddings are so happy, because it's actually two halves of one being that finally found each other and came back together and formed a one. And that is what Jewish marriage is all about. It's about two halves actually finding each other and actually rediscovering that, you know what, my other part of me, wow, I never knew it. It's like best friends that are finally getting back together again after being apart so long. And that's why it's so a happy situation. And Rabbi YY added another thing. He says, and I'm going to tell you something now from my wife. And I get all my great ideas from my wife. Everything I say here, he says, is from his wife, which I never heard him say before. But okay, I believe him. So he said the following. He said, my wife put it this way. He said, you know what? We say that, when you get married, you find your other half. She said, it's actually, there's another meaning there. The other meaning is as follows. That actually, when you discover your other half, you really have discovering another part of yourself that you never remembered and you never knew before. And now that you're married, you're actually are in touch with that other part of you. And you've discovered that other half. And that is why marriage can be something very difficult sometimes, because, say, what? Where did you come from? But really it's part of you. And that's why it's so intense. And so powerful is because it's another part of yourself in another person. And you have to learn how to get used to that. And then sometimes you don't get used to that. And then you have the kids. And then you realize, yes, that is something inside of me, because this kid came from somewhere. And therefore, I better start fixing up that part of me, because that's part of me too. And I behave like that. So there you go. It's life is all about finding out more about yourself through other people. And that is the symbiosis, and that is the connection, and that is the half shekel, that we actually are giving a full shekel. You're giving a half, but God is saying it really is a whole. You really are not, with the part that you're aware of, you think you're giving a half. But truly, when you give your half, you're actually giving your whole, because you're part of you're part of a system, you're part of an ecosystem, you're part of a larger community. And so when you give the half, you're also giving the whole. And then to finish it with, there's the story with in Shkolim, in Gemara Shkolim. There's another rabbi. Oh, there's two stories. The Chassam Sofer says, and that also explains an interesting thing, that when the Jews gave this half a shekel, they gave it for the atonement for the golden calf. Who gave it? Only the men. Why only the men? Because the women didn't sin. So it was only that half that had to deal with anything. The men had to give that half. And then the second part is that it says that when the brothers sold Yosef, in Shkolim, it says the following: when they sold Yosef to the Ishmaelites, who then sold it to the Jebusites, who then sold them down to Egypt. Anyway, they sold them for 20 pieces of silver. The rabbis say that 20 pieces of silver was actually equal in value to 5 shekels. And therefore, there was 5 shekels, but there were 10 brothers who sold Yosef. So each one of them actually has a half of the responsibility, a half a shekel responsibility. And that is the reason why they each give a half a shekel, is to atone for that, because selling Yosef was, they thought they were doing something good, but they thought they were getting rid of something, but actually they were getting rid of their savior. Because if Yosef hadn't gone down to Egypt, they wouldn't have found the grain, and they would have all starved in Israel. So really, Yosef was about saving the Jewish people, not destroying the Jewish people. But sometimes it doesn't look that way. And the story is brought in Shkolim, which is the only Masechta that happens to be both in Bavli and Yerushalmi, in the two Gemaras, because it unites the two different Gemaras together. And that is the half that makes the whole. Questions? Comments? Rotten.
Yeah, I'm not married, I'm single, and I would just say that it's encouraging, but also it makes it feel like I'm missing something because you know, if you know, I have to feel that God wants me to be okay on my own now, or else God would have someone with me. So on the one hand, okay, it'll feel like me, but I'm walking, that's why I'm not on the video, but it also is makes me feel like something's missing. Yeah, based on what you shared. I'm gonna say there's a lot of background noise.
I hear you. Yeah. But I think I said it in a class maybe two, 3 weeks before, maybe a month ago now already, was that, you're not defective while you're single. That's not really the way you're doing it. What you are is in the process of preparing for getting to be married. But it's all God who decided ultimately that it was going to take longer for some people than other people. But he's never saying, you know what, you're always part of my connection. I'm always connected to you. You always have a partner out there. It's just taking him longer or you longer or something's happening. But each step of the way that you go along that process is definitely getting you ready for the situation. And so you have to look at it as it's all a part of what life is all about. You don't play a musical instrument the first day. You might have a latent talent. You may be a fantastic ability to play the musical instrument. On the other hand, though, you have to develop that talent. And some of being single, I was single, my wife was single for an awful long time, and it really was a lot of tears, and it was a lot of pain, and it really looked absolutely impossible. And yeah, I did, many times things that, yeah, I'm different, and I'm really not deserving of this, and that's why God doesn't even let me find anything. And there's a lot of that kind, and give yourself some space. You make those thoughts can come, and you know what? Not right. As I just explained to you. It's not possible. Every human being desires and wants and needs and thrives with this idea of connectivity and attachment and unity, and we're halves that are meant to be whole. And therefore I can give my blessing that everyone should immediately, no longer waiting. You're all ready, more than ready, and the Abish to bring Mashiach and maybe bring your Zigvigdu, and not necessarily in that order. Maybe both at once, immediately by the end of this class. And Shalom Shahudis will have something.
Amen. Thank you.
You're getting the phone call right now. You just didn't answer it. It was ringing in the shop and saying, I got somebody for you.
Also, I want to say it seems like your luck is getting worse and worse until it finally happens, Like I've heard that from many people. So and also Hashem, yeah.
If somebody doesn't meet someone in their lifetime, then will they meet them in the time of the Mashiach, or do you?
It's a very good question. So it's a very good question. So it's very, very, very good question. I wanted to say something before that. I just wanted to say that every minute of everybody's life is completely purposeful. It's not a waiting. You're not in a waiting situation. It's a completely purposeful thing, and Hashem designed it. And we have this former Shabbos guest, and he's in a facility in New Jersey, and he's in a a nursing home in New Jersey, a non-Jewish nursing home run by Jews, but a non-Jewish nursing home, and he's there for various reasons. And it seems like it's not possible to get him out of there and transfer him to a Jewish place. There's no Jewish place quite like this place that has the same things that this place has. And this is where his guardian put him. And, so there he is, never married. And now he's there may be a couple more Jews in that place, but can you imagine for the past many years, for the past 4 years maybe, He eats airplane, frozen airplane food that they warm up in the microwave. He eats it 3 times a day. He's fleishik, probably a lot more than you and I. And what a life, what a life. And I have to tell you that, I don't know, he's climbing spiritual mountains there. He's just, we get calls from him, and he was saying, he was talking to me the other day, and he said, Shalom Zehudis, when you daven, when a person davens, it doesn't mean, Hashem doesn't necessarily answer that davening. And he doesn't necessarily give you what you ask for. He said, but every time we daven, we give intense pleasure to God. And isn't that, and he said, so I'm giving tremendous pleasure to Hashem. And just like, whoa, what a level to live on, This guy's climbing mountains in this a strange place that he's in New Jersey. So he's climbing mountains that nobody else is climbing for Hashem, and he's achieving levels that people don't achieve. And I just like, it's impossible to look at people's lives, what they're achieving. Like the shaliach in California, the Chabad shaliach who got ALS, like other people with ALS, he's degenerated to the point where all he can do is move his eyeballs, and he types by moving his eyeballs. They have a system, and one time, something happened, and he was unable to even do that. Something like that happened. I can't remember what the difficulty was. I don't know if it was long term or short term, but in that time, he said to his wife, what am I here for? If I can't even write essays with my eyeballs, what am I here for? What am I accomplishing? And his wife said, every minute that you're alive, you bring tremendous value to me. And and the things that he writes that I've read are absolutely incredible. Hashem has everybody in their situation for a purpose, and we have to live it to the max. And then Hashem brings you to whatever, and then God willing, Hashem brings you to the situation that you desire. But every minute is meaningful. It's not a waiting game. So, Molly, what did you want to say? I don't know the answer to your question. I guess that's
No, I said if someone
Yes.
does not get married in their lifetime, or find their soulmate in their lifetime,
Yes.
because there are some people who get married and it doesn't work out.
Yes. Yes.
Could they do you have any knowledge of whether people will meet that person in the time of Mashiach?
I wouldn't be surprised. I have no knowledge, but I wouldn't be surprised. And if a person has a bashert, that they're going to get together with that person. So yeah, I that's what I would say. But I'm not a rabbi. So if you don't mind, I want to begin, and I want to begin with the 4 things that I always start out with, because I have my section of the class is how in the world did the Rebbe, a person of flesh and blood, how was he able to say in 1992, how was he able to say the grave will have no power over the leader of the generation, meaning him? How could a person of flesh and blood possibly say such a thing? So be able to say such a thing. So anyway, I'll start with the 4 things I always begin with. Number 1, that we're in an extraordinary time. I mean, and I base that on the Rebbe, that the Rebbe told us that we're entering the time of the redemption, and the Rebbe made earth logic-defying, stunning predictions that people said were out to lunch, and they all happened, every single one of them. So the Rebbe said that we're in the age of Mashiach. We are in the age of Mashiach. And the second thing is we, all our souls, each one of us was handpicked to be here at this super important time in human history. And third, we have all the tools we need. We have the Torah, which is our guidebook. We have tremendous teachings on the internet. It's unbelievable what you can read now. and even if you don't know any Hebrew, and we have the mitzvahs, which are power tools, our power tools. They not only transform the world, they transform us. When I started keeping Torah and mitzvahs, I never experienced things. I never experienced such a powerful discovery of myself. Torah made me who I really was and who I wanted to be. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And finally, what we're doing tonight actively advances the cause of redemption. So, so I want to tell you. So let's answer that question. How could the Rebbe possibly? How could a person of flesh and blood have the ability to say that the grave will have no power over him? So, and he said it in Shoftim, in the talk on the Parsha of Shoftim, and he said that the grave will have no dominion over the leader of the generation, and he was referring to himself. So, so I'm going to tell you two stories. The first story I might have told you a long time ago, but it's an incredible. The second one I didn't. It's a block. It's just an incredible story, and I didn't read it anywhere. I heard it directly from the family. This is not something I picked up from from reading or from anything else. It is something I heard firsthand from the family, and it's an amazing story. And it's about a I heard it from I've talked to this these are two stories from Rabbi David Shochet. Rabbi David Shochet was a tremendous Lubavitch rabbi who passed away very recently, and I called him in Toronto with a question, and I didn't hear the story from him. I heard it from another family member, the first story, and so this is how the first story goes. Also, did I tell you in the last in the last session we were talking? You remember Flacco, the eagle? So he had no clue what his power was. He had no, most of his life he lived 13 years of his life he lived in a cage. He could just hop from one end to the other. He didn't know that he could soar to the highest heights, as like an eagle. He was a Eurasian eagle owl, and he didn't know that he could kill his own dinner. He could make, he could fend for himself, and through a fluke, not a fluke, through God, somebody came and cut open his cage, and he flew. And at first he was floundering, and for 2 weeks he was thrashing through the trees trying to teach himself how to fly, and he made it. And he discovered, oh my gosh, I'm a Eurasian eagle owl. I am a top predator. What is a top predator? It's an incredible creature. Nobody preys on him. He's super powerful, and he can fly like an eagle. That's why they call him an eagle owl. He swoops down at tremendous speeds. So, as I said last week, somebody said that's what Lubavitcher Rebbe does for people. People came to him, and they came like ducks, and the Rebbe explained to them, "You're an eagle," because every Jew has an incredible spark of Hashem in them. And so, how did I get from there to there? So, this guy's a good example of it. He wanted to be an electrical engineer, and the Rebbe said, "No, yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you're going to be an incredible Rav." And that's what he became. He became an incredible Rav, a leader of a large community. And not only a leader of a large community, people from all over would call him. And anyway, this story happened when he was much younger, and his baby sister was 1.5 years old. And I have to remember her name. So maybe I'll remember it by the end of the story. Newfield. Okay, good. So so he was so his family lived in, I believe they lived in Toronto, and I believe they lived in Toronto, and they were not Chabad, but they were friendly with Chabad because everybody in Toronto at that time was friendly with each other, and in his own mind, he liked Chabad. He respected things about Chabad, but his father, and his father did too. His father was a big Rav, and he was a young man at that time, a boy probably at that time. And but they had their questions about Chabad. You know, Chabad does everything differently. Why does Chabad do everything differently? For example, one thing that irritated the father is that when a person would be in trouble, like there'd be a family member in a bad situation, they would make a kiddush in shul, celebrating the person's recovery when the person was still disastrously sick. And the rough and this guy's father, Rabbi David Shachet's father, said that Chabad, they do everything backwards. Everybody knows you make a kiddush after somebody has the miracle, not before they have the miracle. And so anyway, so what happened? Um, I have no idea how it happened, but the mother in the family, it was a large family, the mother in the family boiled up a big pot of water and she put it down on the floor. Maybe she was going to wash some water, laundry, who knows what it was. And maybe she thought her baby was sleeping, who knows, somewhere else. And she turned around for a second and the baby went into the bucket of boiling hot water. A boiling pot of water. The baby dropped into the bucket. Of course, everybody heard. They ran, they fished her out of there, and they rushed her to the biggest hospital, and you know, and she was, you know, her skin turned red, then her skin fell off, and they wrapped her up in bandages, and they put her in an isolation ward, and they said, "We're doing this, but there's very, very, very little chance this child is going to survive. There's almost no chance this child was going to survive." So the father had already heard about the Rebbe. He wasn't a Chabadnik, but he called immediately to get the Rebbe's blessing. And the Rebbe seemed sort of nonchalant. And he even asked him so how are you doing? Things like that. And the father's going, "Oh, I have a baby who's dying." And the Rebbe gave a blessing, but the Rebbe didn't seem bent out of shape. Anyway, so he was the father was glad that he got the Lubavitcher Rebbe's blessing, but he was still uneasy because he wanted to do something for his kid. He wanted to be given a piece of advice, maybe, you know, give a tremendous amount of tzedakah, do this, do that. And the Rebbe didn't give him any advice. So he called back, and the Rebbe said, he called back and he said, "Rebbe, I want to do something." And the Rebbe said, "If you want to do something, make a kiddush this Shabbos, celebrating the miracle that your daughter will have." He's thinking, "Okay, I'm going to do it. This is what I'm going to do." And he did exactly the thing that he had been critical of. And he and the wife was with the baby in the hospital, and the family invited everybody and people from all sectors of life in Toronto, all sectors of life, all different sects of Judaism came, and they knew what was happening, and they made big lahaims for this baby's refuah shlema. This baby should get better. And after Shabbos, the wife called and she said, "Miracle! We had the doctors are optimistic." Exactly at the time the kiddush was being given, sorry, the baby passed water, which meant that her internal organs were not destroyed. They were afraid that her internal organs had been destroyed. So the baby got better and better and better. But she was still in this isolation unit, and nobody could go into the room. The family members were not allowed into the room. And after a few weeks of recuperation, the family suddenly gets a call again, and the hospital is saying, "Come now, your daughter has, if she has anything, she has only hours to live." And the family rushed to the hospital, and they let only the father in. And the father looked at her. She's white. She's like a corpse. She looks horrible, this baby. And he came out, immediately called the Rebbe, and he said, "Something's happening with my daughter. She's again in the clutches of death." And the Rebbe started raising his voice, and the Rebbe said, "This is not possible. This baby should be healthy now. She's, you know, I guess in the spiritual world, he saw that this baby is meant to live and be healthy." And he said, "You tell those doctors there's nothing wrong with that baby. They're doing something wrong." And this was in 1950, in the early 50s. And in the early 50s, You didn't question a doctor. A doctor was second to God, and people were not allowed to question doctors. They were like on such not like today. They were on a big, pedestal. And the Rebbe said, and if they don't listen to you, act like a crazy person, raise a fuss. And so that's what he did. And they didn't listen to him at first. And then he screamed. He started screaming, "You're doing something wrong. You have to check yourselves. You're doing something wrong." Nobody ever did that to doctors. They never did that. And so the doctors, this guy was crazy, and they decided they're going to check. And lo and behold, they were giving her the wrong infusion. They stopped. They immediately changed the right infusion, and she became much better again. So fast forward, her skin grew, everything was good with her. Fast forward to when she was a young woman, I don't know how old, 18 to 22, something like that. And people were looking into, she came from a wonderful family. Probably she's a wonderful person. Her name is Rebbetzin Newfield. Anyway, when she was of marriageable age, people were they were investigating whether they want to marry into that family, whether they want to marry this young woman, this young shochet woman. And a family that was interested but uncertain. Everybody knew her history. Everybody knew the miracle that happened to her when she was little. They went to the Rebbe and they said, "We're thinking about this shidduch, but we're a little worried. Like maybe she won't be able to have children." And the Rebbe put on a big smile and he said, "Don't worry. Don't worry. You have nothing to worry about." They married. She got married. I believe she had 17 children. Rebbetzin Newfield in California. She's a Chabad Rebbetzin. She's probably retired now, but anyway, that's the first story. That happened in the early years of the Rebbe's being Rebbe, and even then, how did the Rebbe know? How did the Rebbe he knew with absolute certainty, there was not a shadow of a doubt that there was nothing wrong with this girl, and the doctors were doing something wrong. Physically, there was nothing wrong with her anymore. The Rebbe's in New York, she's in Toronto, but the Rebbe knew. So anyway, so this is a second story. This is after, so he grew up and he decided to, and he went to school in Lubavitch. He decided, he wanted to, he learned in Lubavitch yeshivas, and he got, whatever, he got his rabbinic degree, and he told the Rebbe that he's planning to be an electrical engineer. The Rebbe said, whatever. He suggested he go into teaching in the rabbinate, which he did, became a phenomenal rabbi. And when he was well established in his rabbinic practice when he's well established in his rabbinic practice in Toronto, he got an invitation to speak in Buffalo, New York, to a group. One of the shluchim, one of the Chabad rabbis out there, said, "Come, you're a good speaker. I'd like you to speak to a university audience." And Rabbi Shochet thought it was a good idea, but then he found out that the vast majority of people who are going to be coming are not Jewish. And not only that, he's going to be on a platform with priests and a priest and a minister and stuff like that. He said, "That's not my cup of tea," because really, they're not, at least Chabad rabbis don't really do that. And so he asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, "Go. This is a good thing for you to do, even though it's going to be a vastly non-Jewish audience. I want you to go, and I want you to speak about charity. Charity is relevant to Jews and non-Jews." And in particular, the Rebbe told this young Rabbi Shochet, "I want you to tell a story. I want you to tell that story that's told it's told by Rabbi Yom Tov Lipman about a miser in his town. And so tell that story." And he knew the story. And so he said, "Okay." And he went and he spoke about charity to this vastly non-Jewish audience. And he told a story about this miser in Krakow in the time of when the rabbi's name was Tosfos Yom Tov. He's called Rabbi Yom Tov when he was rabbi. So the story is about the town Scrooge, and the town Scrooge, his name was Yassala the miser, and everybody knew about Yassala the miser. If you went to his house, you were turned down flat for anything you asked for. You were just simply turned down flat. And people hated him because of that. They said, "What a miser! He doesn't share anything that he has." And when he died, they buried him in the very outskirts of the cemetery, a place that was reserved for Jews who did not do good things. And that's where they buried him. And a couple of weeks after they buried him, the town was in an uproar. People were screaming because poor people routinely would go to the butcher and the baker and get handouts. And now they're going to the butcher and the baker, and the butcher and the baker are not giving them anything. And they're going to the Free Loan Society, and the Free Loan Society said, "I don't have any money for you." And they went to, and people who wanted to make weddings went to the Wedding Help Society, and they said, "We don't have any money for you." And the fund for medical emergencies had also dried up. And so they went to Rabbi Yom Tov and they said, "What's happening?" And he went and he investigated and he found out, lo and behold, Yassala the miser is the one who kept all these funds going. He was the one who gave the money to the butcher and the baker to loan to people. He was the one who gave the money to the medical society. He was the medical help association. He was the one who gave it to the fund for poor brides to make weddings, and to the Free Loan Society. And so when Rabbi Yom Tov found out about this, he said, "Do me a favor. When it's my time to leave this world, I want to be buried next to Yassala." And that's what they did. So he told the story. It was a big success. Everybody received it well. And afterwards, a priest comes up to him, a young priest, and he says, "Would you mind telling me that story again?" And so Rabbi Shochet said, "Okay, come to my hotel room. I'll tell it to you again." He gave him the hotel number, and he came to the hotel room, and he came in, and Rabbi Shochet told him the story again, the exact same story. And then the guy had been pacing nervously in the hotel room the whole time. And after he finished, he said, "Can you tell it to me a third time?" And Rabbi Shochet thought, "This guy's there's something wrong with this guy. There's just something wrong with this guy. Why does he?" And he said, I need to know, why do you want me to tell you this story a third time?" And the young priest said, "I think I'm related to this guy." And Rabbi Shochet said, "You can't be related to this guy. This is a Jew and you're a priest. You're not a relative of his." And he said, and the priest said, "My mother was a Polish immigrant, and she married my father. And when she married my father, a non-Jew, my father made her promise never to tell anybody that she was a Holocaust. She was a Holocaust survivor, and I think she was from the time of the Holocaust. Yeah, she was a refugee after the war." He said he made her promise. He said, "But on her deathbed, she called me and she told me that she's a Jew, and she told me that we have a very, very, very prestigious relative. And she told me this whole story, and it's exactly the story you told. So I think maybe I'm related to this guy." And Rabbi Shochet said, if that's true, you are a Jew, and if you're a Jew, you have to keep the whole Torah and mitzvahs. And the guy left in a little bit of a shock, and Rabbi Shochet didn't hear from him again. Many, many years later, Rabbi Shochet was in Yerushalayim. I believe he was at the wall. He went to the hotel, and a man walks up to him, a chassid walks up to him, and he said, "Rabbi Shochet, how are you?" And the guy said, Rabbi Shochet said, "Do I know you?" He said, "Yeah, you know me, but in a different stage, in a different form. I'm the young priest who came to you. I decided I'm going to go explore my roots, and I came to Israel. Now I'm a Breslover chassid." And so anyway, it's a remarkable story, right? It's a wonderful story. But the biggest part of the story is, how did Lubavitch Rebbe, sitting in New York, know there's going to be a young priest to talk about that Rabbi Shochet has to talk about charity, number one, and he has to tell the story about Yassala the miser. How does the Rebbe know, sitting in New York, that this is exactly what has to happen. So I have to tell you that I'm not like that, and I don't think you're like that either. So the Rebbe did this not one time. The Rebbe did this thousands of times. And if the Rebbe did this thousands of times, then the Rebbe can tell you, it can tell you and I that the grave is going to have no control over him. So anyway, I'm going to close here, and I'm going to ask if you have questions and answers. And does anybody have any questions? Meantime, I'm going to turn off the recording because I like to keep the class length short. Okay, good.
What did you say about the grave has no what?
No dominion, no power over the Rebbe, and the grave has no power over the Rebbe. That's the absolute truth. You know, like I told you so many stories about my own life and times I wrote to the Rebbe after his funeral in 1994, way after his funeral. And I get such amazingly direct answers, incredible answers, one after another, after another, after another, after another. The Rebbe is even more accessible than he was before 1994. So anyway, I'm going to turn off the recording and take